Hey, how you doing? Welcome back to Rise Records. I'm Riley, and this is the podcast where I delve into my favorite records and explain the stories behind them. On today's episode, I've prepared something very special for you. Today, I'm going to be discussing the songwriting themes of escapism, nostalgia, and romance in Taylor Swift's sister albums, Folklore and Evermore. Now, these two records are the very two that made me fall in love with Taylor's music, and I'll tell you why. You see, I never used to be a Swiftie. I didn't much care for her pop star status or whenever her hits like Shake It Off or We Are Never Ever Getting Back Together were on the radio. That was until one night in 2020 when my partner at the time and I watched the Folklore Long Pond Studio Sessions documentary on Disney+. We'd watched a Bruce Springsteen one on Netflix the night before, so fair is fair. I was admittedly apprehensive at first, but she had told me about how fantastic the record was and how I'd love it from a songwriter perspective. So I thought, well, why not? So she puts it on, and I'm not kidding you when I say, when I heard Taylor play the first song from Folklore, which is called The One, for the first time with that simple but breathtaking piano introduction, I froze. She had me. I remember thinking how absolutely beautiful it was, and that was it. I was so amazed by how beautiful the rest of the music was I heard. It was truly a life-changing experience, and I gained a new respect and understanding for Taylor's songwriting. When she released Evermore a couple months later, I listened to it the very hour it came out, and again, I was staggered. Where had this beautifully atmospheric songwriting been all of my life? It's a question that I still ponder today, and now I want to take the time to discuss with you the three main themes I took from these albums: escapism, nostalgia, and romance, and how they all blended together to create, in my opinion, two of Taylor Swift's best records. But first, a little bit of backstory of both. After years of reinventing herself from country innuendo to pop superstar, Taylor Swift surprised everyone by pivoting into a quieter, more introspective sound. Collaborating with Aaron Dessner of The National, Jack Antonoff, and later Bon Iver's Justin Vernon, she stripped back the glossy pop production of 1989 and Lover and leaned into indie folk, chamber pop, and subtle electronic textures. Folklore, released in July 2020, was written largely in quarantine during the COVID-19 pandemic. Deprived of the external chaos of tours and paparazzi, Taylor retreated inward, but also outward, into the world of storytelling. She began writing from fictional perspectives: abandoned lovers, childhood friends, ghosts of the past. The result was an album that feels like walking into a cabin in the woods, where every song is another story being told by candlelight. 5 months later came Evermore, the winter counterpart to Folklore. If Folklore was about wandering the woods, Evermore feels like staying there once the snow has fallen. It is slightly darker, more mature, with themes of endings, betrayals, and moving through grief. Across both albums, escapism, nostalgia, and romance intertwine. Escapism offers refuge. Nostalgia ties us to memory and lingers like perfume on old letters. Romance provides the emotional stakes. And Taylor's lyrics move seamlessly between these three themes, creating music that feels timeless, yet deeply tied to moments of human vulnerability. Alright, let's dig into these themes. I think I'll begin with escapism. So escapism in Taylor's writing isn't just about running away. It's about imagining another life, another outcome, or another time. It's about coping with pain by constructing a world where things could have been different. Take The Lakes, the bonus track from Folklore. Here, Taylor paints a picture of retreating from fame and noise. I want auroras and sad prose. I want to watch wisteria grow right over my bare feet. The imagery is pastoral and romanticized, a world away from tabloids and tours. The song is both escapist and nostalgic, yearning not for a literal past, but for a timeless, poetic existence where love and art are enough. Another powerful example is Seven. Written from the perspective of a child, it recalls an innocent friendship shattered by domestic pain. The narrator imagines running away together, living in a treehouse, playing pirates. Here, escapism is both a shield and a gift, a child's way of protecting a friend from trauma. Nostalgia infuses the song too, with Taylor's adult voice looking back at childhood memories that are blurry and yet emotionally sharp. Then there's Willow, which opens Evermore. Its lyrics, "I'm like the water when your ship rolled in that night," evoke surrender to love's pull. The song feels like stepping into a myth or fairy tale, where desire is the guiding thread. The gentle plucked guitar, almost like a spell being cast, reinforces that sense of enchantment. This is escapism not from pain, but into love's magic. We see escapism in a different form with Dorothea, a nostalgic ballad about someone who left her small town for Hollywood. The narrator conjures images of the Dorothea they once knew. A tiny screen's the only place I see you now. The song imagines a life unlived, a path not taken. Escapism here is bound to memory, wondering what might have happened if things had stayed the same. Finally, the title track, Evermore, is steeped in emotional escapism. The lyrics describe being stuck in despair where time feels frozen. Grey November, I've been down since July. The longing here isn't to physically leave, but to escape the heaviness of grief. The word evermore itself signals being trapped, wanting out, but being unable to move forward. Across these examples, escapism in Taylor's writing isn't simple daydreaming. It's a survival mechanism. Whether escaping childhood trauma, public scrutiny, heartbreak, or unfulfilled longing, the characters construct inner worlds as shelters. Now let's turn to nostalgia, a theme that saturates both albums. Nostalgia in Taylor Swift's hands is really straightforward. It isn't just fond remembrance, it's bittersweet, haunted, and often painful. Her characters look back not at just what was, but what was lost. Consider Cardigan, one of folklore's most famous tracks. The metaphor of an old cardigan, something worn, discarded, but eventually reclaimed, stands for love, remembered and rediscovered. Taylor sings, "When you are young, they assume you know nothing." The song is nostalgic for young love, but also angry at its dismissal. Nostalgia here is both tender and defiant. Then there's August. This track radiates nostalgia for a fleeting summer romance. August slipped away into a moment in time. The vivid sensory details, ocean air, tangled sheets, the month of August itself, anchor the memory in place. Yet, the nostalgia is tinged with regret. The romance was never truly hers, part of a love triangle narrative. Its memory is both gift and a wound. Betty, my favorite song from folklore, continues this love triangle from the perspective of James, who reflects on betraying Betty and longs for forgiveness. The nostalgia here is rooted in guilt. James remembers mistakes, wishing to return to the innocence of youth. In pairing these three songs, Cardigan, August, and Betty, Taylor creates a mosaic of nostalgia from multiple perspectives, each one colored differently by loss, betrayal, or yearning. On Evermore, nostalgia takes darker shapes. Tolerate It recounts a relationship where devotion went unnoticed. The narrator looks back at all the ways she tried to give love, setting the table, making space, offering affection, only to be met with indifference. Nostalgia here is laced with bitterness, remembering love as labor unappreciated. Champagne Problems offers another kind of nostalgic wound, the memory of a rejected proposal. This song captures every detail, the ring, the crowd, the stunned silence. The event is preserved like a snapshot, never to be undone. Nostalgia becomes a curse. The characters will carry that moment forever. Even Right Where You Left Me, a bonus track on Evermore, embodies the trap of nostalgia. The narrator is frozen in time, abandoned in a restaurant booth, never moving forward. Nostalgia here isn't about warm memories, but about being stuck, unable to escape the moment of heartbreak. In Taylor's world, nostalgia is rarely simple comfort. It's often double-edged, capable of soothing, but also of holding someone captive. Finally, let's talk about romance. Romance is the heartbeat of both albums, but not in a glossy fairy tale sense. Instead, Taylor explores love's complications, secrecy, imbalance, endurance, and failure. On Folklore, Illicit Affairs lays bare the cost of secret love. Taylor sings of clandestine meetings, of perfume lingering, of a love that dies a million little times. Romance here is intoxicating but corrosive. The very secrecy that fuels it also ensures its destruction. Then there's Peace, which offers a portrait of mature, lasting love shadowed by insecurity. Taylor asks, would it be enough if I could never give you peace? Here, romance isn't about passion or betrayal, but about compromise, vulnerability, and the fear of not being enough. It's one of her most honest depictions of the complexities of committed love. On Evermore, we return to Willow, where we glow with romance's enchantment, while Dorothea captures a softer, perhaps platonic longing. Long Story Short feels more triumphant, recounting how love survived chaos and criticism. Meanwhile, Happiness acknowledges the duality of romance, that even in heartbreak there were moments of joy that will remain. Together, these songs show romance in its many forms: intoxicating, destructive, enduring, disappointing, and joyful. Taylor never settles for a single definition. Instead, she sketches the entire spectrum of what it means to love and lose. But of course, these three themes don't exist in isolation. Escapism often arises from romantic disappointment. The Lakes imagines a retreat with a lover. Evermore imagines being free of despair. Nostalgia, meanwhile, is often fueled by lost romance. The cardigan left behind, the summer fling that ended, the engagement that fell apart. These themes overlap constantly. Seven is both escapist fantasy and nostalgic memory. Cardigan is romantic longing and nostalgic reflection. Champagne Problems is both romantic tragedy and nostalgic scar. Even the natural imagery Taylor uses, forests, lakes, seasons, the weather, it all functions as a connective tissue. Autumn leaves signal nostalgia, snow signals stillness, and summer air signals romance and loss. These settings allow listeners to step inside the songs, escaping into a shared landscape of memory and feeling. In this way, Folklore and Evermore become not just collections of songs, but immersive worlds. So, where does this leave us? Folklore and Evermore are albums about human survival through story. Escapism provides shelter when reality is too sharp. Nostalgia allows us to revisit what once was, even if it hurts. Romance gives us the stakes, the reason we long, regret, and hope. Taylor didn't just release 2 records. She built spaces we could inhabit during some of the most difficult months of recent history. Spaces where we could imagine, remember, and feel deeply. As listeners and fans, we return to these albums not just for the melodies, but for the way they validate our own inner landscapes. We've all longed to escape. We've all been caught up in nostalgia. We've all been changed by romance. So the next time you put on Folklore or Evermore, notice how these themes move through the songs and ask yourself, which moments of escape, nostalgia, or romance feel most familiar to you? Well, that's all I've got time for on this episode of Rise Records. A bit of a shorter one today, but thank you so much for joining me. I hope that this episode gave you a new way to hear and feel Taylor Swift's songwriting. If you enjoyed this, consider liking, following, and maybe share it with a fellow Swiftie and let me know what your favourite song from either album is. I hope you'll join me again next week for a look inside Bob Dylan's lyrical symphony, Blonde on Blonde. So, until the needle drops again, have a great week everyone, and bye for now.